Without much ado, I'm going to invite the panelists for the next session, and our apologies to you all as well. Thank you for bearing with this. At this point, I want to quickly invite Ramesh, if you could please come and join us on the panel. Please, friends, let's get some energy here. Thank you. Harish, thank you for being so patient and joining us. Thank you, please. And Pradeep, please come in. This is going to be an exciting session, friends. This is one session which I'm seeing where the chair refuses to be on his chair, and he wants to build the energy route from there. A round applause for B.S. Nagesh, who's going to chair this. Nagesh ji, thank you so much for building the energy. Please, up to you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I thought before we start off, since we are talking of a consumer macro panel, let me do a quick consumer check on this. How many of you have worked in rural areas? How many of you have worked in rural areas? Oh, there's just 4 of you, and I wanted many hands to be raised. How many of you have not worked in rural areas? So keep your hands up, okay? Now, how many of you have heard of Bijur, Harish Bijur as Bijur Consults? Raise the other hand, okay? Now use both the hands and clap for the panelists. I have Harish, I have Pradeep, and I have Ramesh with me. And we are looking at a panel which is going to be on consumer, but we are actually going to address the macros. And I think we have one of the best panels possible, especially the fact that I am honored to conduct a small panel discussion with the 3 of them, covering from brand to consumer macros to the rural sector. Before I start, I want to give you a few examples of how consumers are so difficult to understand but so easy to manage. And especially in places like ours when we are in retail business, you know, retail is like this. Abhi hum dukaan khol ke baithe hain aur aadhe customers bhi nahi aaye abhi. Okay, sometimes you have to go outside and request ki saab aiye. Sometimes you stand on the road. You must have seen on Linking Road, you know, you stand outside and say, bhai ji aiye, behan ji aiye, you bring them inside. So we are in a very, very unique situation here. If you look at events, promotions, marketing, response to consumer, in the last 15, 20 years, things have changed dramatically. And when I say dramatically, I still recollect situations 15 years back when we used to be selling cosmetics, perfumes. To be able to get women to come on a stool like this and make them sit across and get a makeover done was almost impossible. Almost impossible. You know, they'll say, "Meri bahu saath mein hai, mere pati dev hai, wo kya bolenge?" You know, things like that. And just a year back, the organization decided to have a marathon makeover session in Select Saket. And in 8 hours, we did 1,000 makeovers. And in 1,000 makeovers, we had a situation where the mother-in-law, the mother, the daughter, and the daughter-in-law, all 4 of them were sitting in front of an Estee Lauder or a Clinique or a Clarins or a MAC and actually get makeover done. Now, that's the kind of democratization that's happened in this country in terms of the consumers and the way they behave. There are lots and lots of such examples, but we'll pick it up as we go. But let me start with Ramesh, who comes from the background of management consulting. Ramesh, just pick up and tell us about what's happening to the macro consumers. The question that I have is, can anybody here with guarantee say that we are 1.2 billion population? How many of you believe it is 1.2 and not 1.1? It's 1.4 now. Anybody wants to agree to 1.4? I still think it's 1.3. We're talking of figures, yeah? What do you think, Ramesh, is happening to the consumers? Are there 300 million consumers in this country? Are you seeing households which are there to consume? What's happening? Just share with the audience here.
Thanks, Nagesh. I'd also like to thank Nagesh for another thing. He's the first person to chair a session standing up, and as soon as I said that, he sat down. But, yeah, that's an interesting question, though, Nagesh. I mean, gross numbers, quite honestly, and we do a lot of these numbers ourselves, 1.2, 1.4. It's really very hard for any of us to validate one way or the other where this lies. It comes out of a lot of approximation, a lot of surrogate measures you take across various things and really do. But interestingly, as we kind of go through, and we've been looking at trends of consumerism over the last few years, and obviously a number of trends there, but a couple that I thought I'd pick on, which are probably a little more interesting to this kind of a forum, which is entrepreneurs, and I'm assuming a number of startups as well amongst entrepreneurs. So we are kind of seeing a correlation between the overall trend and the number of startups in both these areas. First, I think there seems to be a huge shift away from pure products into convenience services. So even if you look at growth rates of a lot of convenience services, door-to-door delivery, tremendous amount of e-commerce boom, that really seems to be getting validated. So that is one major trend that we are seeing, a shift away from necessarily having to go physically somewhere and check it out, versus saying, can it get delivered to my doorstep, and can I kind of sit in front of a machine and buy it off as well. So that seems to be one interesting trend, and even people like McDonald's, for example, now offering door-to-door delivery as well. So it's not just the startups who are doing this, but the more established players as well coming into doing that. So that's a big trend. The second is obviously a trend more into what we call experiential services, like the spas, the travel, the adventure tourism. And a lot of these, I think, are trends that are being picked up, and we see, I come from Bangalore, I work in Bangalore at any rate, and I see a number of startups that are beginning to focus on these areas, saying maybe there are opportunities here that haven't really been tapped. And therefore, I see the correlation between these two. How it plays out, I guess we'll know over a period.
Ramesh, but I have a very interesting question. When we talk of the population, when you talk of a 300 million odd individuals whom we can serve, the strange thing that hits me is that when you look at 10-year, 20-year, 30-year-old brands in this country who have really worked very hard, when you ask their turnover, they are 400 crores, 300 crores. Hardly you see them crossing 100 million. To cross 100 million US dollars is a big 1 year. Now, why is it, when you have such a large population, why is it that entrepreneurs, very few entrepreneurs are able to build 0 to 100 in 5 years, or you build $1 billion corporation? I mean, I know the apparel brands in this country, they're all in the $100, $150 million. When you go across internationally, you see almost all the brands are talking about $1 billion. Harish, what do you think is happening? Why is the consumption not reaching a stage where you can actually say you have $10 billion companies created in a decade's time?
Well, Nagesh, the point really is that at this given point of time, this country is just about entering what I would call a takeoff stage. We haven't come to the classical takeoff stage as yet. Going back to numbers, while numbers are important, I, of course, typically have a theory to say that, we understate our population numbers most of the time. I'm sure, like one of you said, it's 1.4 billion rather than 1.2, because the moment you go into a rural household, rural people send their third and fourth child away because they don't want to be coming onto the tracking system, because then you lose a lot of incentives, etc. So I think what's important for us today, and what's important for the audience as entrepreneurs, is the fact that we are somewhere around 1.2 billion in terms of people terms. Second thing is the quality behind those numbers is that much more important. By that I mean, we are a very hungry 1.2 billion people. I say that we have 1.2 billion people, which means we have 1.2 billion stomachs, and we have 1.2 billion bladders. Without pointing it, I want to tell you, to 1.2 billion bladders, which means that as many stomachs, that much the hunger for food, as many bladders, that much the hunger for beverage. And guess what? We not only have a stomach and a bladder, we have 46 other body parts. And each one of that craves for a marketing solution. So for an entrepreneur out here, we need to be very excited and say that we are the world's second largest population. 2, our hunger and our penetration of brands and services is pathetic in this country. Except for tea, which has the highest penetration in this country, no other product or service comes even 20% close to tea in terms of penetration, which means it's an opportunity for everybody to go out and do big things. So be excited at the fact that we are such a big country, our quality and our value. And when I talk about body parts, we have hair on our head. And I do work in China, I do work in India. I think the Indian opportunity is bigger. For instance, the hair oil segment in China is smaller than the hair oil segment in India. Despite the fact that we have about 600 million women, they largely have about 800 million women. Between the two, the hair oil opportunity is bigger in India because an average Indian woman has hair, the average length is about 1.6 feet. Okay, it's that long. Whereas the average Chinese has got 3 inches of hair. So more the hair, more. So these are qualitative stuff. So there's plenty of opportunity.
So Harish, you have opportunity not only sell hair oil, but you have opportunity for entrepreneurs who want to make wigs because the length of the hair can be cut up and down depending on the fashion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but are these the behaviors which you are seeing in the urban centers, or Pradeep, are you seeing this even in the rural centers? I mean, in the rural centers, 1.5 feet length hair, does it get as oiled or not oiled in the urban center?
मैं उसके ऊपर एक बहुत अच्छा सा एग्जांपल देना चाहूँगा.
Yeah.
It's not working.
Maybe use that other one. So.
मैं एक अच्छा सा एग्जांपल देना चाहता हूँ कि अगर यहाँ कोई भी एक अच्छी सी लड़की बैठी हुई है, मैं नहीं देख रहा उनकी तरफ, तो वो कौन सा शैम्पू यूज करती है, तो वो कहेगी इमीडिएटली मैं हेड एंड शोल्डर यूज करती हूँ, मैं पैंटीन यूज करती हूँ, मैं ये करती हूँ, मैं वो करती हूँ, और उसकी कॉस्ट कितनी है, तो 150 रुपीज अ बॉटल। वो मेरी गांव की लड़की 50 पैसे का सैशे लेती है और अपने हेयर को लगाती है, और उसका भी हेयर ऐसा ही हिलता है हवा में जैसे कि 150 वालों का हिलता है। सो जो एस्पिरेशन है गांव में उतना ही चला गया है जितना जाना चाहिए। Irrespective of religion and caste, inspiration has changed rural India totally. They want best of the best of life, and the advantage of now the distribution of all the good companies. Yes, I agree with him, but they are reaching to 1 lakh villages. So 1:6 is the ratio is there. And these are very important villages which are key and feeder villages. So if you want to buy something, they go to that village and they buy the product. As per my knowledge goes, there are 5 brands which are available in all 65 lakh outlets of rural India.
Which are these 5 brands? I mean, without...
You name it, I'll tell you if they are missing.
Is Colgate available?
5 brands.
Colgate, Maggie.
Parle G, perfect. Parachute.
Nirma somebody said.
No, not
Nirma. Yeah. Tata Salt.
Tea.
Tata Tea, yes. Lux. No, not
Lifebuoy.
Lux. Lifebuoy.
I want to add one more brand to that, and that is, from a recent research exercise we have come out with, and this is Rakhi Sawant. The point is simply this, that most of us work with a paradigm to say that brands are physical stuff that you eat and drink, but not necessarily so. The mind of the rural person is a clutter. And the rural person has plenty of brands in them, and brands which move electronically tend to get seeded into the mind of the rural person very deeply. And guess what? Doordarshan is still a killer brand in rural India, even today. Okay? And Rakhi Sawant, incidentally, is a big hit not only among the men in this country. You would imagine it's only the men, it's the women as well. Because a lot of rural women live vicarious lives through their stars. And Rakhi Sawant is a star who connects with them. She talks with as much of rusticity as any of them does. And a lot of them could aspire vicariously to be like Rakhi, but they can never ever be like Rakhi, thankfully. But the point is, it's a question which continuously comes up. There are a lot of brands in our minds. So it's not only Colgate and Dettol and 6 other brands, but there are many other brands in the minds of people. And that's where the opportunity lies for entrepreneurs like you. Because, you can seed brands electronically today. And e-commerce is a brilliant, brilliant way.
So Nagesh,
yeah.
just one more addition to what he said. And I think it's the point about services as well, which is Airtel. And you asked why don't last 10 years where have companies really taken off? Take a look at Airtel. It's a services. So it doesn't strike us as, so a brand is not, just to add to what Harish says, individual, not a product, a service as well. So if you look at telecom and any of the telecom brands today, even in rural areas, look at the penetration, the growth over this period, I think it's there to show that services is the big area.
I picked 2 things from you. One I picked up is as entrepreneurs, just ensure that Rakhi Sawant is your brand ambassador. So at least you are sure that you are able to reach them. And I want to ask Harish, I hope you're not consulting for Rakhi Sawant.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, so he also made his pitch to say, I want to consult for Rakhi Sawant. Yeah, but interesting is when you look at rural versus the urban, you're almost seeing a string of thread and behavior which is looking very, very similar and aspirational. So the question that I have is for Pradeep is that how are the rural consumers aspiring? Are they educating themselves? Are they learning more? Or is it just the medium which is reaching them? What is happening to them in terms of their growth? I know the rural consumption is going by 18, 19, 20, 30% compared to urban, which is probably 10, 15%. But what's happening in terms of their development?
There are 5 things which are happening in rural India, which is very, very important, which is changing rural India in a big way. The first thing is education. We are the largest elementary education system in the world. The education is playing very important role in rural India. Don't go by that how good it is, वो teacher कैसा पढ़ाता है, कौन दारू पी के आता है, क्या आता है. I am not interested in that. But the education is playing very important role. The second is communication. as he has mentioned, the Doordarshan is reaching to 92% population of India, and satellite TV is reaching to around 45 to 55% population of India, and every month there are 5 lakh installation of DTS TV, mean they are exposed to the world. Bold and Beautiful वो भी देखने लगे अभी, बहुत प्रॉब्लम आने वाला है सर. अगर वो बोल्ड एंड ब्यूटीफुल पहले दिन से देखने लगेंगे तो बहुत प्रॉब्लम आएगा आपको. The third thing which is happening in this country in a big way, which is changing rural India, is a minimum support price. The fourth thing which is changing in this India is government spending. One of them is Narega, and the fifth is Panchayat Raj. So these 5 things are changing rural India in a big way. Go to any household. एक आप मुझे बताइए कि एक गांव की औरत जो कि पत्थर फोड़ रही है, यू गो टू अक्रॉस द कंट्री एंड आस्क हर कि आपको लाइफ में क्या करना है, एंड सी विल टेल यू 100 out of 100 मेरे बच्चों को मुझे पढ़ाना है. So that change has already come in this country. We are actually 20 years old. Understand that. We always think that I cannot teach you on that. There is a big difference between developed country and a developing country. We are just 20 years. This all has started in 92, 93. So we are just 20 years old. It will take time. एक रात में नहीं होगा. And we cannot go by electronic media and English newspaper saying that ये सब खराब हो रहा है, उधर सब बेकार हो रहा है. I am not a representative of any government. But what I am saying is there is a lot of changes which are happening in this country. See, Rajiv Gandhi Awas Yojana. Fantastic. It is happening fantastically. Gram Sadak Yojana. Happening fantastically. अभी उसमें दिक्कतें यहाँ भी होती है, वहाँ भी होती है. So if we'll discuss only on that and not discussing what is good happening in this country, especially in rural India, I think that is incorrect. So
wonderful.
Rural India is changing
I think
in a
Pradeep,
big
you have
way.
really opened up a great opportunity. Harish, if there are entrepreneurs who are sitting here who probably invested into the urban centers, or if there are startup entrepreneurs who have a certain fund, a few $1 million, and they need to get into, let's say, urban or rural or national, I mean, what would be your recommendation in terms of their entry strategy?
Okay. See, the fact is very clear that we have as much as 67.3% of the population of this country which lives in rural areas. And therefore, any company worth its salt needs to have a footprint which is urban and rural. So it's extremely critical. Point number 2 is the fact that most companies, particularly entrepreneurs, typically they look at urban markets. Fundamentally because urban markets, you pluck the low-hanging fruit of opportunity. But the urban markets are drying up because, you need to reach out higher. Now, as that happens, it's very imperative to go to rural markets. But rural markets, the opportunities are not sitting there. They need to be created. You cannot pluck existing stuff out there. Therefore, I do believe my suggestion to companies, and I work with a fair number of overseas companies who have an intention on India, and you know what I tell them? Start with the rural market first, and then go to urban markets. We've actually seeded 19 different companies in rural markets at this point of time, even as I speak, where people have entered markets there first. Because I say, you are a perfume. If you enter into a big city and you walk into Nagesh's shop or stop, you'll find 29 different brands out there competing with one another. You're the 30th brand. You go into a rural market, you're different. You're going to be reasonably unique. So what I'm saying is, not only is the opportunity getting created, there's a big future out here for entrepreneurs, particularly young entrepreneurs who have more time and patience. And that is, look at every government scheme. You look at the direct cash transfer scheme that we're talking about. We're talking about 350,000 crores of rupees every year finding its way into the pockets of people. This money used to go there, but it used to go as subsidy on a gas cylinder, on pesticide, on fertilizer. Now, what happens in a subsidy is that when you get something, you have to consume it. So you get kerosene, you have to consume it. But when it's not subsidy, it's cash, you may not even buy kerosene. You might buy kerosene with about 20% of that money, but 80% of it will go into consumption expenditure. And the personal consumption expenditure of this country is slated to boom. And the PFC quotient, as we call it, is going to boom in a phenomenal manner. Which means that suddenly 350,000 crores of rupees, out of that, let's take about 7% of it, is going to enter into the consumption market. And 7% of 350,000 crores is a large amount of money. What will it do? It's going to create consumption. The moment you have money, you buy goods. The moment you buy goods, somebody is making profit. And the moment you have bought goods, that person goes and produces goods once again. So the cycle of consumption is going on a continuous basis. So I'm very excited about DCT. There are a lot of political bickering going on direct cash transfers, but this is going to be a game changer, provided it gets implemented. It's going to take donkey's years.
That I think we'll keep our fingers crossed.
But on the 1st of January, come to Mysore and go to maybe 39 other districts in this country, wherever it's happening. Please be there firsthand, experience it firsthand, and then decide whether you see excitement here. But give us another 3-4 years, and I do believe this country is going to be on a boom phase of takeoff, and therefore rural is a big opportunity.
That's a very positive note. Ramesh, when I look at entrepreneurs in Europe, okay, and look at entrepreneurs in India, and if both of them have $10 million, somebody in Italy or France or UK will say, I want to really get into UK. But when the same $10 million is given to an entrepreneur in India, and like he says, I want to cover India. Why is it this whole consumption of being nationalist or being in a national space so much a bug for entrepreneurs say, I want to be a national player? Why can't he be just a Maharashtra player? Why can't you go into the system of the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 in Maharashtra and do a great job like any European will do? I mean, is there an opportunity like that? Or entrepreneurs have to look at big money and do a national launch and go into national areas together?
So maybe I'll give an anecdote rather than a general answer, which covers what both Pradeep and Harish said as well. So we worked recently with a company which is one of the original founders of Wipro has set up a company that runs rural BPOs, and that's today only down in the 3 states of the south. Right? So I kind of went on a visit, and their first center was about 40-50 kilometers outside Salem in Tamil Nadu. We kind of interviewed some of the people in there, and it's very revealing. A lot of what Pradeep said is true. There was this girl, a young girl out there who was working, and she said her father was a rice laborer. He was earning about 2,000 rupees a month on an average across a year's period. And this girl is now educated, and she said with that money they got her educated enough to work in the center. She earns 8,000 a month. And she said that this job has transformed the life of that family completely. It's 5 times their earning from what they were earlier. And she said, yeah, sure, I have a TV at home now, and we've got good clothes to wear, and it's changed their lives completely. So when you look at this education, her first point was saying education in India, in the rural areas, is unless we are educated, we are not going to rise above the levels that we are. And this I pretty much saw at first hand in there. So if you go back, yes, this is a company that's saying there is enough potential in certain targeted areas if you go about doing it. They currently don't have plans to expand beyond, because they believe that if you target it deep enough within each of these areas that they are in, it's a large enough market. So I think it pretty much encompasses what the other.
Yeah, but let's get on to some other question, which is also, how many of you don't own a BMW, Audi or Mercedes here? Don't own. Raise your right hands. Not bad. Keep your right hands up. Keep your right hands up. How many of you want to own a Mercedes, BMW or Audi? Thank you. I mean, this keeps the audience alive. I'm sure that you're not sleeping. I need to check. I have to keep checking on this. Harish, you straddle between luxury to rural, from luxury to mass product. How is this Indian consumers' behavior when it comes to luxury? Somebody who buys a BMW, do they really go and bargain for the dhania ka patta? Or somebody who buys a BMW and a carat worth of jewelry, is their behavior different in different situations? The reason I'm asking you is one of the research that we did in our trust that I run, we found that the consumer's behavior towards sales staff is very different when they go to a small shop, a medium shop, a department store and luxury store. वो luxury store वाला कुछ भी बोले उसको आऊँ करके ऐसे hello hi करके निकल. और वही अगर छोटे दुकानदार वाला 2 मिनट ब्रेड में लेट आया तो अबे तू था. So we find the behavior different, although the consumer is the same. How are you seeing as a marketing professional? How are you seeing that as an opportunity or an issue?
Okay, Nagesh, this is coincidental that I've just written a paper on this, which I've just posted on my Twitter handle. If you look at it, I have studied 16 different brands in luxury as well as in what I call bottom of the pyramid brands. There are distinct ways of operating. The luxury mindset is very different. The luxury guy is a guy who's clothed as well as you are and can roll his R's and his P's, and at the end of the day he could be a guy sitting in Philadelphia, he could be a guy sitting in Boston. These are commonality elements which govern his thinking. Now he throws his money with panache without a problem. The guy at the bottom of the pyramid is a much more conscious guy who weighs every bit of the paisa, and in his mind he's got what I call a price quality equation, which is a weighing scale on which he puts the price on one and quality on the other, and very carefully weighs every 2 rupees 60 paise that he spends. It's crazy. You know, we had a 2.5 rupee note in the old days, that is, which came to nearly 2.5 rupee note. People still think of 2.5 rupee as the cutoff point where you put weights. So people weigh 2 rupees 50 paise. Every 250 change can either switch on a consumer or switch off a consumer. So this is common. Then of course there's the great Indian customer. And this is the customer who has actually got a BMW, the car you spoke about, and who actually drives out to one of the best, who could drive to a Louis Vuitton and buy something, then go to a Swarovski, pick up something, and then he goes to Big Bazaar to do his shopping, of all things. You know, guess what? There is a quality aspiration which he switches on at times, switches off at times. There's a service expectation which he switches on when he walks into a Louis Vuitton showroom. Even if the girl behind the counter can't roll her R's and P's as well, he's put off. But he goes to Big Bazaar and they push him and shove him and send him here. He doesn't bind. Because I think he thinks that one is a premium and one is a non-premium. So we are essentially, you know, quite a bit of a maverick customer.
There is one more element. As part of our wardrobe research, we went into a few CEOs' house to check up their wardrobes. And I found that in the wardrobe you had suits which were worth 30,000 rupees. But I also saw some shirts which were 199 rupees and 299. And I was quite shocked. So when I asked, he says, don't ask me, ask my wife. And that point you missed. And I said, why should I ask your wife? He says, no, she says that when you're roaming around the colony and going for shopping to buy the grocery, why should you wear a 500 rupee shirt? So he says, I need to have this kind of shirt also in my wardrobe.
I need to come and check your wardrobe.
Okay, Ramesh. Interesting is, if this is the way the market is going, what do you think is going to be the role of e-commerce? I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs sitting here must be straddling saying, should I put money into brick and mortar? Should I go into e-commerce? Should I really get into online? Because the way the whole telcos pushed away the whole pager industry, will the e-commerce push away the brick and mortar? Don't do that. My livelihood is dependent on that. But what do you think is going to happen to e-commerce? And what should be their approach towards e-commerce in the country?
I think it's still early days for e-commerce. So if you look at most of the large e-commerce sites that are there today, bulk of the investment, 80 to 90% of the investment is actually going into brick and mortar. The very large e-com retailers today, and I'm not talking of those who have front end like a Shoppers Stop that does both. I'm talking of pure e-com. All their investments today is going into the whole delivery cycle. So the front end, which is the e-commerce portal, attracts customers in. But they are having huge difficulties in terms of actually delivering to that promise. Right? So they are e-com in that sense only in name. Otherwise, they've got all warehouses, they own their inventory, they've got multiple stocking points around the country, they've invested in the entire logistics network. It's their own delivery boys, their own delivery truck. Huge amount of investment is going into that. At some point, I guess that it will kind of come to a mean in between where there are enough players who are able to do the delivery really for them. But having said that, I think e-commerce is here to stay.
Harish,
you had a point is in rural areas today.
Yeah, I was just wanting to pick both of them.
I'm going to say that e-commerce has arrived. I'm very excited about it. The total number of net surfers today are about 146 million. Out of them, about 21 million are actually trading on the net for various things. And if you take out irctc.co.in, there are big businesses which are happening. I mean, yesterday I was told by someone that the diapers, branded baby diapers that are sold on the net in India is 200 crores. Can you imagine that kind of size?
Anybody who sells diapers here? Any entrepreneur in the diaper business?
Not yet. Not yet.
They're
but
missing
the point
the
is, no, the future is different. But the point is, if you look at it, every bit of the business is taking off. As I told you, when I talk to overseas companies, I'm bringing in one guy from overseas without taking his name. He's a perfume guy, incidentally, from Japan. And I've told the guy, don't go into urban markets. So we ran a beta on his portal. And we went to just one of those portals which are horizontals and placed the perfume out there. And guess what? The perfume which cost 260 rupees for an 80 ml bottle sold 2,600 numbers in 1 month. Guess what? If I'd gone to Shoppers Stop and placed it, even 20 pieces wouldn't have sold in 1 month. If I'd gone to the best store, it wouldn't have sold. Also, let me give you, forget the perfume guy from Japan. Let me talk about, one other point there is, I tell the perfume guy one thing. In the old days, people would not enter rural markets because, or semi-urban markets, because you didn't have distribution there. Gone are those days now. Distribution problem is passé because internet provides you that distribution. So at the end of the day, the biggest leveling ground for all distribution is the internet. The moment there is connectivity, the remotest corners of this country can order what they want. And this is the first time they have equity. I mean, they don't have to travel 200 kilometers to a big city to go and look at variety. They can look at variety literally in their village. On the desktop.
Pradeep, you must be experiencing what's the change that's happening in the rural areas. You work so closely with the rural sector. Are you really seeing on the ground impact in consumer behavior because of e-commerce, and also the commerce part of it, the business really growing in those sectors?
E-commerce will take time because the biggest issue is a power. Even today, there are a lot of states in this country where there is a 12-hour power cut. So we have to understand that. That is a big problem. But you go to any taluka place, there are minimum 3 to 5 cyber cafes across the country. There are around 6,000 talukas, and you go to all these talukas, you will find, means it has reached to a level. Definitely it has reached to a level. And youth, yes, they are adopting in a big way. The only issue is the logistic is the biggest issue today in this country, because if you see out of the 6 lakh villages, 87% villages are very small. Not even 2,000 pop startup, means not even 350 households.
Okay. So Nagesh, let me just interrupt Pradeep with one piece of data. This is from e-commerce in India, Pradeep. One of the big portal, without taking its name. The largest number of microwave ovens sold in India by any single store in any particular single month is not Vivek & Co. from Chennai, which was the old one.
Yeah.
Today it is this portal. Okay, and he sells microwave ovens to the remotest corners of this country. He sells microwave ovens every month to something like 811 different locations in this country. Out of those 811, about 200 are big cities and tier 2, and the rest are small towns.
Amazing.
At the end of the day, even if that guy gets power for 2 hours a day, the microwave oven is an item of relevance, and he uses it. So listen, in the old days, microwave oven penetration was difficult. People didn't know what it was. Can you imagine people from Peddapalli and even beyond and actually ordering for microwave ovens? So this is a revolution.
Yeah.
And I think its time has come, and you're going to see big monies here.
Yeah, I think if let me open the question answer to the audience, but before that, 3 or 4, I think, macro indications or directions that we seem to have got from this panel is, one is there's not only depth in the market, there's width. Okay, don't go by what has happened in the next 20 years. The next 5-10 years could be really revolutionary. So this is the time when the takeoff happens. So at the takeoff stage, don't go slow down. Okay, that's one. The second is, I think whether you have your head office in Mumbai, Nariman Point or BKC, I think it's important to operate the rural areas because the consumptions are growing, and there the growth is almost twice the rate of growth that's happening in the urban center. The third is that the rural consumer is educating themselves, and as they're educating themselves, they're learning more, they're aspiring more, they have similar media exposure that an urban consumer has, and therefore don't ignore the rural consumer in terms of consumption. And the last looks like is, I think e-commerce is coming, is going to happen. The question is, how well can we use e-commerce as part of a business so that we can move ahead? I think this is a wonderful pieces and nuggets of great knowledge which came out of a panel, and I have probably another 5 minutes to go. If some of you have questions, there's a gentleman. Will you please stand up, and if somebody can give a mic there, please. Just ask a question, please don't make a statement or a comment, so that we can take many more questions.
Check. So today, in the day of innovation and innovative products, how important is it to brand yourself online, and what's the key differentiator? Online branding, and what's the key differentiator?
Harish?
Well, you see, online branding is very much different from, offline branding, which is in the sense that, you don't only need a name, you don't only need a logo, symbol, etc. But the point is, online branding is about the 360-degree experience that a customer is receiving. So if a customer comes to your website, I have personally isolated 71 touch points for a customer from the point of hearing the name of your website to coming there, to surfing, to experiencing and getting the delivery at his place. 71, can you imagine? If every one of those 71 experiences go beautifully for the customer, he's with you, as per a study of ours across 18 different verticals. If supposing even 6 of them go bad, he's out of you. And guess what? There are too many websites around. Every Tom, Dick and Harish is going into the market and opening a website of his own, portal. So if he switches off you because of those 6 errors out of 71, he's over. So you just get one chance. So I keep telling portal owners and guys behind e-commerce enterprises that you cannot but be perfect. And your perfection standard needs to be the global standard of perfection and not the old physical market Indian standard of perfection. We don't talk that language anymore, do we? In the old days, we were derided as Indian Standard Time. Not anymore. So if you really look at it, I think, we need to look for perfection in all those 71 touch points. For an airline industry, for aviation, for instance, the touch points are 29 only. It's limited. But for a delivery industry, which is a product delivery, touch points are 71.
And did you, I don't know how many of you realize in the last 2 minutes when Harish spoke, okay, there was an aspect of branding in his speech. Did anybody realize anything very different?
Harish.
It was Tom, Dick and Harish. Yeah? I love that. I love that. So that's the importance of branding. Yes, please.
Harish, you said distribution is passé. Can you just explain?
Okay. Now see, that's a very dangerous statement. When I said distribution is passé, I said for an overseas company entering into India, most companies would come and tell me, we cannot enter rural markets. We are going to enter only urban because we can reach urban distribution easily. And there are distribution formats which are available easily. Now I tell them, don't worry about that. You don't have to go to urban just because distribution formats are available. You can go to rural markets because all you need to do is, given you this example of this perfume guy, we have got him listed on 18 different verticals. And all of them advertise, and guys, all of them have traffic. Different people have different kinds of traffic coming in. So without a physical distribution system, a guy sitting in Hoshiarpur, in a remote corner of Hoshiarpur, can get this perfume delivered to him within 24 hours time, because we've tied up with someone who's very good. And of course it's cash on delivery, because no other mechanism works there. And cash on delivery is dangerous, because 20% cash on delivery stuff comes back to us. And the guy who makes the money is the courier. He takes it up, brings it back.
Wonderful. As a chair, I'm going to use a rule. Anybody who wants to ask a question to Harish Bijur cannot ask a question. So anybody else who wants to ask a question, which can be directed to the other two. Yes, please.
Yeah, actually it's a very generic question. Great session so far. You guys have mentioned a few brands along the way. Now, what's important is the awareness. Are the consumers in the rural areas insisting on a perfume, or are they insisting on a Calvin Klein? If they are, I'm in the business of audio, so are they?
Come to the question quick, please.
Yeah. So my question is, are consumers very demanding on the brand equity, like the brand recall, or is it like a similar substitute product would do?
Ramesh, I won't allow Harish to answer.
I think Pradeep is the right guy for this, from a rural standpoint. Yeah.
They go by color in rural India. Anything in blue bottle is Parachute.
Okay.
Anything red and white is either Colgate or a Lifebuoy. So they go by color, but now they have started asking the brand, because the opinion leader for hygiene, health, oral care, hair care and computer education is secondary going school student. So he understands and is exposed to the communication. So he sees everything, all the communication on that box, and he talks to his parents. And in turn, he asks him to buy a particular product.
In fact, because he said everything blue is Parachute and everything red and white is Colgate, he was also telling me that there's a 15,000 crore, $3.5 billion worth of fake and duplication industry. It's a great opportunity, but none of you please take it. We don't want you to do that.
Huge opportunity, huge opportunity.
Yeah, we'll take last question on this side. I was wondering if any lady would want to ask. I mean, such a wonderful, handsome panel. Yeah, please.
My question is to Mr. Pradeep. Sir, you talked about the 5 brands that are, present in the 65 lakh villages. Can you highlight which are the top 5 or 6 companies which are very successful in rural areas and why?
HUL, because of basket of products. Marico, because of very one strong brand, Colgate is paste means Colgate, nothing else. So it is not only the brand push. The fantastic thing which has happened in this country is there is a fantastic brand push by all the companies, but there is a fantastic brand pull. Because of communication, education, disposable income, all these things which has come, and they are asking these brands. So he has to keep these 5-7 brands, and behind that he sells everything.
I can, that's it. I can ask a question to Harish. You can't ask. Tell me, every time we talk of the top 5 brands, we talk of the Hindustan Levers and the Maricos. You do such a wide variety of work. Can you quote 1 or 2 brand names to the audience which are not the Hindustan Levers of the world, but have done some fantastic work in rural penetration?
Oh, a lot of them. I mean, if you look at even brands like Ghadi detergent, Ghadi is a classic case of having done good work. But the brand I respect, I keep asking this, I keep asking this to people, which is India's largest selling brand of lipstick? Come on, Nagesh, you tell me which is India's largest selling brand of lipstick.
In my opinion, it will be Lakme.
Okay, there's one guy who knows the answer.
Who's the guy?
No, the guy is a guy I've met before. I've taught him before.
Okay.
The thing is, it's called Raja lipstick. Okay.
Raja lipstick.
Yeah, you have not even heard of Raja lipstick. Likely, it's not even Raja lipstick. It's called Raja Lali. Lali. Okay. Lali in Hindi means you know what.
Yeah.
So why is that so popular? I mean, there are a lot of good guys, but this is a regional game. Ghadi is popular in some regions. Lali is this. Raja Lali lipstick is somewhere. Overall, as a mega multinational brand, the big ones are popular, but big ones are becoming, two lowest common denominator in their approaches. They are not distinct. The distinct local brands stand out. Why? In Bangalore, we have a soap which is called Parivar soap. And Parivar soap in rest of rural Karnataka is called Fariva. And Fariva is a very popular soap. The best houses in Bangalore use Parivar soap to clean dishes. Okay? And this competes with the best dishwashing fluids you get from 6 different big companies. So consumers find their brands.
I can also give you an example as to why Raja is sold. Okay, but let me give you an example of what I have experienced. We used to have a hair clips and the hair do's counter in shoppers. This is a long time back, and it was always to be manned by a lady. It so happened that one day the 2 women who were supposed to come didn't come, and we were forced to put a boy onto that counter. That day the sale went 4 times. Okay, and it was amazing. I mean, I was shocked. I said, what happened? Then the next day I told the ladies, don't go into the counter, let this guy stand. Again it went the 4 times. And I went and asked the customer, and this was one customer who was very, very honest. She said, when the girl is telling me you look beautiful, I think there is something not right.
There you are. Nagesh,
okay? But when the boy said it is beautiful, I thought my hair is really beautiful. Yeah. So Raja, having a man's name on the lip is much better than having
Nagesh,
a woman's
I'm going
name.
to add one thing. I'm going to add one thing to this beautiful example of yours. I do a fair bit of work in lingerie as well. And in India, lingerie, 98% of lingerie is sold by men,
yes.
leery looking men behind counters to women.
Absolutely.
The moment you change it, it doesn't go anywhere. People still love buying lingerie from leery looking men. I don't know why.
No, I think we will leave because we have moved from lipsticks to lingerie. We'll stop it here. Yeah. But thank you very much, audience. It was wonderful. And can we cheer our panels? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.